Phantasmagoria by Lewis Carroll. In memory of golden summer hours and whispers of a summer sea. Canto 1, The Trysting. One winter night at 9:30, cold, tired, and cross and muddy, I had come home too late to dine, and supper with cigars and wine was waiting in the study. There was a strangeness in the room, and something white and wavy was standing near me in the gloom. I took it for the carpet broom, but presently the thing began to shiver and to sneeze, on which I said, "Come, come, my man, that's a most inconsiderate plan. Less noise there, if you please." "I've caught a cold," the thing replies, "out there upon the landing." I turned to look in some surprise, and there before my very eyes a little ghost was standing. He trembled when he caught my eye, and got behind a chair. "How came you here?" I said, "and why? I never saw a thing so shy." "Come out, don't shiver there," he said. "I'd gladly tell you how, and also tell you why. But," here he gave a little bow, "you're in so bad a temper now, you'd think it all a lie. And as to being in a fright, allow me to remark that ghosts have just as good a right in every way to fear the light as men to fear the dark." "No plea," said I, "can well excuse such cowardice in you, for ghosts can visit when they choose, whereas we humans can't refuse to grant the interview." He said, "A flutter of alarm is not unnatural, is it? I really feared you meant some harm, but now I see that you are calm. Let me explain my visit. Houses are classed, I beg to state, according to the number of ghosts that they accommodate. The tenant merely counts as weight, with coals and other lumber. This is a one-ghost house, and when you arrived last summer, may have remarked a spectre who was doing all that ghosts can do to welcome the newcomer. In villas this is always done, however cheaply rented, for though of course there's less of fun when there is only room for one, ghosts have to be contented. That spectre left you on the 3rd. Since then, you've not been haunted, for as he never sent us word, 'twas quite by accident we heard that anyone was wanted. A spectre has first choice, by right, in filling up a vacancy, then phantom, goblin, elf, and sprite. If all these fail them, they invite the nicest ghoul that they can see. The spectre said the place was low, and that you kept bad wine. So, as a phantom had to go, and I was first, of course, you know, I couldn't well decline." "No doubt," said I, "they settled who was fittest to be sent. Yet still to choose a brat like you, to haunt a man of 42, was no great compliment." "I'm not so young, sir," he replied, "as you might think. The fact is, in caverns by the waterside, and other places that I've tried, I've had a lot of practice, but I have never taken yet a strict domestic part. And in my flurry, I forget the 5 good rules of etiquette we have to know by heart." My sympathies were warming fast towards the little fellow. He was so utterly aghast at having found a man at last, and looked so scared and yellow. "At least," I said, "I'm glad to find a ghost is not a dumb thing. But pray, sit down. You'll feel inclined, if, like myself, you have not dined, to take a snack of something, though certainly you don't appear a thing to offer food to. And then I shall be glad to hear, if you will say them loud and clear, the rules that you allude to." "Thanks, you shall hear them by and by. This is a piece of luck. What may I offer you?" said I. "Well, since you are so kind, I'll try a little bit of duck. 1 slice. And may I ask you for another drop of gravy?" I sat and looked at him in awe, for certainly I never saw a thing so white and wavy, and still he seemed to grow more white, more vapory, and wavier, seen in the dim and flickering light as he proceeded to recite his maxims of behavior. Canto 2, His 5 Rules. "My first, but don't suppose," he said, "I'm setting you a riddle, is is, if your victim be in bed, don't touch the curtains at his head, but take them in the middle, and wave them slowly in and out while drawing them asunder. And in a minute's time, no doubt, he'll raise his head and look about with eyes of wrath and wonder. And here you must on no pretense make the first observation. Wait for the victim to commence. No ghost of any common sense begins a conversation. If he should say, "How came you here?" the way that you began, sir, in such a case your course is clear. "On the bat's back, my little dear," is the appropriate answer. If after this he says no more, you'd best perhaps curtail your exertions. Go and shake the door. And then if he begins to snore, you'll know the thing's a failure. By day, if he should be alone, at home, or on a walk, you merely give a hollow groan to indicate the kind of tone in which you mean to talk. But if you find him with his friends, the thing is rather harder. In such a case, success depends on picking up some candle ends, or butter in the larder. With this you make a kind of slide. It answers best with suet, on which you must contrive to glide, and swing yourself from side to side. One soon learns how to do it. The second tells us what is right, in ceremonious calls. First burn a blue or crimson light, a thing I quite forgot tonight. Then scratch the door or walls. I said, "You'll visit here no more." If you attempt the guy, I'll have no bonfires on my floor. And as for scratching at the door, I'd like to see you try. The third was written to protect the interests of the victim, and tells us, as I recollect, to treat him with a grave respect, and not to contradict him. "That's plain," said I, "as tear and tret to any comprehension. I only wish some ghosts I've met would not so constantly forget the maxim that you mention. Perhaps," he said, "you first transgressed the laws of hospitality. All ghosts instinctively detest the man that fails to treat his guest with proper cordiality. If you address a ghost as thing, or strike him with a hatchet, he is permitted by the king to drop all formal parleying, and then you're sure to catch it. The fourth prohibits trespassing where other ghosts are quartered, and those convicted of the thing, unless when pardoned by the king, must instantly be slaughtered. That simply means be cut up small. Ghosts soon unite anew. The process scarcely hurts at all. Not more than when you're what you call cut up by a review. The fifth is one you may prefer that I should quote entire. The king must be addressed as Sir. This, from a simple courtier, is all the laws require. But should you wish to do the thing with out-and-out politeness, accost him as my goblin king, and always use, in answering, the phrase, Your Royal Whiteness. I'm getting rather hoarse, I fear, after so much reciting, so if you don't object, my dear, we'll try a glass of bitter beer. I think it looks inviting. Canto 3, Scarmorges. "And did you really walk," said I, "on such a wretched night? I always fancied ghosts could fly, if not exactly in the sky, yet at a fairish height." "It's very well," said he, "for kings to soar above the earth, but phantoms often find that wings, like many other pleasant things, cost more than they are worth. Spectres, of course, are rich, and so can buy them from the elves, but we prefer to keep below. They're stupid company, you know, for any but themselves, for though they claim to be exempt from pride, they treat a phantom as something quite beneath contempt. Just as no turkey ever dreamt of noticing a bantam. They seem too proud," said I, "to go to houses such as mine. Pray, how did they contrive to know so quickly that the place was low, and that I kept bad wine? Inspector Kobold came to you," the little ghost began. Here I broke in. "Inspector who? Inspecting ghosts is something new. Explain yourself, my man." "His name is Kobold," said my guest, "one of the spectre order. You'll very often see him dressed in a yellow gown, a crimson vest, and a nightcap with a border. He tried the Brocken business first, but caught a sort of chill, so came to England to be nursed, and here it took the form of thirst, which he complains of still. Port wine, he says, when rich and sound, warms his old bones like nectar, and as the inns where it is found are his especial hunting ground, we call him the Inn Spectre." I bore it like a man, this agonizing witticism, and nothing could be sweeter than my temper, till the ghost began some most provoking criticism. "Cooks need not be indulged in waste, yet still you'd better teach them dishes should have some sort of taste. Pray, why are all the cruets placed where nobody can reach them? That man of yours will never earn his living as a waiter. Is that queer thing supposed to burn? It's far too dismal a concern to call a moderator." The duck was tender, but the peas were very much too old. And just remember, if you please, the next time you have toasted cheese, don't let them send it cold. You'd find the bread improved, I think, by getting better flour. And have you anything to drink that looks a little less like ink and isn't quite so sour? Then, peering around with curious eyes, he muttered, "Goodness gracious," and so went on to criticize your room's an inconvenient size. It's neither snug nor spacious. That narrow window, I expect, serves but to let the dusk in. But please, said I, to recollect 'twas fashioned by an architect who pinned his faith on Ruskin. I don't care who he was, sir, or on whom he pinned his faith, constructed by whatever law. So poor a job I never saw, as I'm a living wraith. What a remarkable cigar! How much are they a dozen? I growled. No matter what they are. You're getting as familiar as if you were my cousin. Now that's a thing I will not stand, and so I tell you flat, aha, said he, we're getting grand, taking a bottle in his hand. I'll soon arrange for that. And here he took a careful aim, and gaily cried, here goes. I tried to dodge it as it came, but somehow caught it all the same, exactly on my nose, and I remember nothing more that I can clearly fix, till I was sitting on the floor, repeating 2 and 5 are 4, but 5 and 2 are 6. What really passed I never learned, nor guessed. I only know that when at last my sense returned, the lamp, neglected, dimly burned. The fire was getting low. Through driving mists I seemed to see a thing that smirked and smiled, and found that he was giving me a lesson in biography, as if I were a child. Canto 4. His Nourriture. Oh, when I was a little ghost, a merry time had we, each seated on his favorite post. We chumped and chawed and buttered toast they gave us for our tea. That story is in print, I cried. Don't say it's not, because it's known as well as Bradshaw's Guide. The ghost uneasily replied, he hardly thought it was. It's not in nursery rhymes, and yet I almost think it is. 3 little ghostesses were set on postesses, you know, and ate their buttered toastesses. I have the book, so if you doubt it, I turned to search the shelf. Don't stir, he cried. We'll do without it. I now remember all about it. I wrote the thing myself. It came out in a monthly, or at least my agent said it did. Some literary swell who saw it thought it seemed adapted for the magazine he edited. My father was a brownie, sir. My mother was a fairy. The notion had occurred to her the children would be happier if they were taught to vary. The notion soon became a craze, and when it once began, she brought us all out in different ways. 1 was a pixie, 2 were fays, another was a banshee. The fetch and kelpie went to school and gave a lot of trouble. Next came a poltergeist and ghoul, and then 2 trolls, which broke the rule. A goblin and a double, if that's a snuff box on the shelf. he added with a yawn. "I'll take a pinch." Next came an elf, and then a phantom, that's myself, and last a leprechaun. One day, some spectres chanced to call, dressed in the usual white. I stood and watched them in the hall, and couldn't make them out at all. They seemed so strange a sight. I wondered what on earth they were that looked all head and sack. But Mother told me not to stare, and then she twitched me by the hair and punched me in the back. Since then I've often wished that I had been a spectre born. But what's the use? He heaved a sigh. They are the ghost nobility, and look on us with scorn. My phantom life was soon begun when I was barely 6. I went out with an older one, and just at first I thought it fun, and learned a lot of tricks. I've haunted dungeons, castles, towers, wherever I was sent. I've often sat and howled for hours, drenched to the skin with driving showers, upon a battlement. It's quite old-fashioned now to groan when you begin to speak. This is the newest thing in tone, and here it chilled me to the bone. He gave an awful squeak. Perhaps, he added, to your ear that sounds an easy thing. Try it yourself, my little dear. It took me something like a year, with constant practicing. And when you've learned to squeak, my man, and caught the double sob, you're pretty much where you began. Just try and jibber if you can. That's something like a job. I've tried it, and can only say I'm sure you couldn't do it, even if you practiced night and day, unless you have a turn that way, and natural ingenuity. Shakespeare, I think it is, who treats of ghosts in days of old, who gibbered in the Roman streets, dressed, if you recollect, in sheets. They must have found it cold. I've often spent £10 on stuff, in dressing as a double, but though it answers as a puff, it never has effect enough to make it worth the trouble. Long bills soon quenched the little thirst I had for being funny. The setting up is always worst. Such heaps of things you want at first. One must be made of money. For instance, take a haunted tower, with skull, crossbones, and sheet, blue lights to burn, say 2 an hour, condensing lens of extra power, and set of chains complete. What with the things you have to hire, the fitting on the robe, and testing all the colored fire, the outfit of itself would tire the patience of a Job. And then they're so fastidious. The haunted house committee, I've often known them make a fuss because a ghost was French or Russ, or even from the city. Some dialects are objected to. For one, the Irish brogue is, and then for all you have to do, £1 a week they offer you, and find yourself in bogies. Canto 5. Bickerment. Don't they consult the victims, though? I said. They should, by rights, give them a chance, because you know the tastes of people differ so, especially in sprites. The phantom shook his head and smiled. Consult them? Not a bit. 'Twould be a job to drive one wild, to satisfy one single child. There'd be no end to it. Of course you can't leave children free, said I, to pick and choose, but in the case of men like me, I think mine host might fairly be allowed to state his views. He said, it really wouldn't pay. Folk are so full of fancies. We visit for a single day, and whether then we go or stay depends on circumstances. And though we don't consult mine host before the thing's arranged, still if he often quits his post, or is not a well-mannered ghost, then you can have him changed. But if the host's a man like you, I mean a man of sense, and if the house is not too new, why, what has that, said I, to do with ghosts' convenience? A new house does not suit, you know. It's such a job to trim it. But after 20 years or so, the wainscotings begin to go, so 20 is the limit. To trim was not a phrase I could remember having heard. Perhaps, I said, you'll be so good as to tell me what is understood exactly by that word? It means the loosening all the doors. the ghost replied and laughed. "It means the drilling holes by scores in all the skirting boards and floors to make a thorough draught. You'll sometimes find that 1 or 2 are all you really need to let the wind come whistling through. But here there'll be a lot to do." I faintly gasped, "Indeed, if I'd been rather later, I'll be bound," I added, trying most unsuccessfully to smile, "you'd have been busy all this while, trimming and beautifying?" "Why, no," said he. "Perhaps I should have stayed another minute. But still, no ghost that's any good, without an introduction, would have ventured to begin it. The proper thing, as you were late, was certainly to go, but with the roads in such a state, I got the night mayor's leave to wait for half an hour or so." "Who's the night mayor?" I cried, instead of answering my question. "Well, if you don't know that," he said, "either you never go to bed, or you've a grand digestion. He goes about and sits on folk that eat too much at night. His duties are to pinch and poke and squeeze them till they nearly choke. I said it serves them right. And folk who sup on things like these," he muttered, "eggs and bacon, lobster and duck, and toasted cheese, if they don't get an awful squeeze, I'm very much mistaken. He is immensely fat, and so well suits the occupation. In point of fact, if you must know, we used to call him years ago the Mayor and Corporation. The day he was elected mayor, I know that every sprite meant to vote for me, but did not dare. He was so frantic with despair and furious with excitement. When it was over, for a whim, he ran to tell the king, and being the reverse of slim, a 2-mile trot was not for him a very easy thing. So, to reward him for his run, as it was baking hot and he was over 20 stone, the king proceeded, half in fun, to knight him on the spot. 'Twas a great liberty to take. I fired up like a rocket. He did it just for punning's sake. The man, says Johnson, that would make a pun would pick a pocket. A man, said he, is not a king. I argued for a while and did my best to prove the thing, the phantom merely listening with a contemptuous smile. At last, when breath and patience spent, I had recourse to smoking. "Your aim," he said, "is excellent. But when you call it argument, of course you're only joking." Stung by his cold and snaky eye, I roused myself at length to say, "At least I do defy the veriest skeptic to deny that union is strength." "That's true enough," said he, "yet stay." I listened in all meekness. "Union is strength, I'm bound to say. In fact, the thing's as clear as day. But onions are a weakness." Canto 6. Discomfiture. As one who strives a hill to climb, who never climbed before, who finds it in a little time grow every moment less sublime, and votes the thing a bore, yet having once begun to try, dares not desert his quest, but climbing ever keeps his eye on one small hut against the sky, wherein he hopes to rest, who climbs till nerve and force are spent, with many a puff and pant, who still, as rises the ascent, in language grows more violent, although in breath more scant, who climbing gains at length the place that crowns the upward track, and, entering with unsteady pace, receives a buffet in the face that lands him on his back, and feels himself, like one in sleep, glide swiftly down again, a helpless weight, from steep to steep, till with a headlong giddy sweep he drops upon the plain. So I, that had resolved to bring conviction to a ghost, and found it quite a different thing from any human arguing, yet dared not quit my post, but keeping still the end in view, to which I hoped to come, I strove to prove the matter true, by putting everything I knew into an axiom, commencing every single phrase with therefore or because. I blindly reeled 100 ways about the syllogistic maze, unconscious where I was. Quote he, "That's regular claptrap. Don't bluster any more. Now, do be cool and take a nap." Such a ridiculous old chap was never seen before. You're like a man I used to meet, who got one day so furious in arguing, the simple heat scorched both his slippers off his feet. I said, "That's very curious." "Well, it is curious, I agree, and sounds perhaps like fibs, but still it's true as true can be, as sure as your name's Tibbs," said he. I said, "My name's not Tibbs." "Not Tibbs?" he cried. His tone became a shade or two less hearty. "Why, no," said I. "My proper name is Tibbets." "Tibbets? Aye, the same. Why, then, you're not the party." With that he struck the board a blow that shivered half the glasses. "Why couldn't you have told me so 3/4 of an hour ago? You prince of all the asses! To walk 4 miles through mud and rain, to spend the night in smoking, and then to find that it's in vain, and I've to do it all again. It's really too provoking." "Don't talk," he cried, as I began to mutter some excuse. Who can have patience with a man that's got no more discretion than an idiotic goose? "To keep me waiting here, instead of telling me at once that this was not the house," he said. "There, that'll do. Be off to bed. Don't gape like that, you dunce. It's very fine to throw the blame on me in such a fashion. Why didn't you inquire my name the very minute that you came?" I answered in a passion. "Of course it worries you a bit to come so far on foot, but how was I to blame for it?" Well, said he, "I must admit that isn't badly put, and certainly you've given me the best of wine and victual." "Excuse my violence," said he, "but accidents like this, you see, they put one out a while. 'Twas my fault after all, I find. Shake hands, old turnip top." The name was hardly to my mind, but as no doubt he meant it kind, I let the matter drop. "Good night, old turnip top, good night. When I am gone, perhaps they'll send you some inferior sprite, who will keep you in a constant fright, and spoil your soundest naps. Tell him you'll stand no sort of trick. Then, if he leers and chuckles, you just be handy with a stick. Mind that it's pretty hard and thick, and rap him on the knuckles. Then carelessly remark, 'Old coon, perhaps you're not aware that if you don't behave, you'll soon be chuckling to another tune, and so you'd best take care.' That's the right way to cure a sprite of such like goings-on. But gracious me, it's getting light. Good night, old turnip top, good night." A nod, and he was gone. Canto 7. Sad Souvenance. "What's this?" I pondered. "Have I slept, or can I have been drinking?" But soon a gentler feeling crept upon me, and I sat and wept an hour or so, like winking. "No need for Bones to hurry so," I sobbed. "In fact, I doubt if it was worth his while to go. And who is Tibbs, I'd like to know, to make such work about? If Tibbs is anything like me, it's possible he won't be over-pleased to be dropped in upon at 3:30 after he's snug in bed. And if Bones plagues him anyhow, squeaking and all the rest of it, as he was doing here just now, I prophesy there'll be a row, and Tibbs will have the best of it. Then, as my tears could never bring the friendly phantom back, it seemed to me the proper thing to mix another glass and sing the following coronach. And art thou gone, beloved ghost, best of familiars? Nay, then farewell, my duckling roast. Farewell, farewell, my tea and toast, my meerschaum and cigars. The hues of life are dull and grey, the sweets of life insipid, when thou, my charmer, art away. Old brick, or rather let me say, old parallelepiped. Instead of singing verse the third, I ceased, abruptly rather, but after such a splendid word, I felt that it would be absurd to try it any farther. So with a yawn I went my way to seek the welcome downy, and slept and dreamed till break of day of poltergeist and fetch and fay and leprechaun and brownie. For years I've not been visited by any kind of sprite, yet still they echo in my head those parting words so kindly said, "Old turnip top, good night." A sea dirge. There are certain things, as a spider, a ghost, the income tax, gout, an umbrella for 3 that I hate. But the thing that I hate the most is a thing they call the sea. Pour some salt water over the floor. Ugly, I'm sure you'll allow it to be. Suppose it extended a mile or more. That's very like the sea. Beat a dog till it howls outright. Cruel, but all very well for a spree. Suppose that he did so day and night. That would be like the sea. I had a vision of nursery maids. Tens of thousands passed by me, all leading children with wooden spades, and this was by the sea. Who invented those spades of wood? Who was it cut them out of the tree? None, I think, but an idiot could, or one that loved the sea. It is pleasant and dreamy, no doubt, to float with thoughts as boundless and souls as free. But suppose you are very unwell in the boat. How do you like the sea? There is an insect that people avoid, whence is derived the verb to flee. Where have you been by it most annoyed? In lodgings by the sea. If you like your coffee with sand for dregs, a decided hint of salt in your tea, and a fishy taste in the very eggs, by all means choose the sea. And if with these dainties to drink and eat, you prefer not a vestige of grass or tree, and a chronic state of wet in your feet, then I recommend the sea. For I have friends who dwell by the coast. Pleasant friends they are to me. It is when I am with them I wonder most that anyone likes the sea. They take me a walk, though tired and stiff. To climb the heights I madly agree, and after a tumble or so from the cliff, they kindly suggest the sea. I try the rocks, and I think it cool that they laugh with such an excess of glee, as I heavily slip into every pool that skirts the cold, cold sea. Ye carpet knight, I have a horse, a right good horse. Ne do I envy those who scour ye plain in heady course, till sudden on their nose they light with unexpected force. It is a horse of clothes. I have a saddle, sayest thou so? With stirrups, knight, to boot? I said not that, I answer no. It lacketh such, I woot. It is a mudden saddle low, part of ye fleece brute. I have a bit, a right good bit, as shall be seen in time. Ye jaw of horse, it will not fit. Its use is more sublime. Fair sir, how deemest thou of it? It is this bit of rhyme. Hiawatha's photographing. From his shoulder Hiawatha took the camera of rosewood, made of sliding folding rosewood, neatly put it all together. In its case it lay compactly, folded into nearly nothing. But he opened out the hinges, pushed and pulled the joints and hinges, till it looked all squares and oblongs, like a complicated figure in the second book of Euclid. This he perched upon a tripod, crouched beneath its dusky cover, stretched his hand, enforcing silence, said, "Be motionless, I beg you." Mystic awful was the process. All the family in order sat before him for their pictures. Each in turn, as he was taken, volunteered his own suggestions, his ingenious suggestions. First the governor, the father. He suggested velvet curtains, looped about a massy pillar, and the corner of a table, of a rosewood dining table. He would hold a scroll of something, hold it firmly in his left hand. He would keep his right hand buried, like Napoleon, in his waistcoat. He would contemplate the distance with a look of pensive meaning, as of ducks that die ill tempests. Grand, heroic was the notion, yet the picture failed entirely, failed because he moved a little, moved because he couldn't help it. Next, his better half took courage. She would have her picture taken. She came dressed beyond description, dressed in jewels and in satin, far too gorgeous for an empress. Gracefully she sat down sideways, with a simper scarcely human, holding in her hand a bouquet rather larger than a cabbage. All the while she was sitting still, the lady chattered, like a monkey in the forest. "Am I sitting still?" she asked him. "Is my face enough in profile? Shall I hold the bouquet higher? Will it came into the picture?" And the picture failed completely. Next the son, the stunning Canteb. He suggested curves of beauty, curves pervading all his figure, which the eye might follow onward, till they centered in the breastpin, centered in the golden breastpin. He had learnt it all from Ruskin, author of The Stones of Venice, and perhaps he had not fully understood his author's meaning. But whatever was the reason, all was fruitless as the picture ended ended in utter failure. Next to him, the eldest daughter, she suggested very little, only asked if he would take her with her look of passive beauty. Her idea of passive beauty was a squinting of the left eye, was a drooping of the right eye, was a smile that went up sideways to the corner of the nostrils. Hiawatha, when she asked him, took no notice of the question, looked as if he hadn't heard it, but when pointedly appealed to, smiled in his peculiar manner, coughed and said, it didn't matter, bit his lip and changed the subject. Nor in this was he mistaken, as the picture failed completely. So in turn the other sisters. Last the youngest son was taken. Very rough and thick his hair was, very round and red his face was, very dusty was his jacket, very fidgety his manner, and his overbearing sisters called him names he disapproved of, called him Johnny, Daddy's darling, called him Jackie, scrubby schoolboy, and so awful was the picture in comparison, the others seemed to one's bewildered fancy to have partially succeeded. Finally, my Hiawatha tumbled all the tribe together. Grouped is not the right expression, and as happy chance would have it, did at last obtain a picture where the faces all succeeded. Each came out a perfect likeness. Then they joined and all abused it, unrestrainedly abused it, as the worst and ugliest picture they could possibly have dreamed of, giving one such strange expressions, sullen, stupid, pert expressions. Really anyone would take us, anyone that did not know us, for the most unpleasant people. Hiawatha seemed to think so, seemed to think it not unlikely. Altogether rang their voices, angry, loud, discordant voices, as of dogs that howl in concert, as of cats that wail in chorus. But my Hiawatha's patience, his politeness and his patience, unaccountably had vanished, and he left that happy party. Neither did he leave them slowly, with the calm deliberation, the intense deliberation of a photographic artist, but he left them in a hurry, left them in a mighty hurry, stating that he would not stand it, stating in emphatic language what he'd be before he'd stand it. Hurriedly he packed his boxes, hurriedly the porter trundled on a barrow all his boxes, hurriedly he took his ticket, hurriedly the train received him. Thus departed Hiawatha. Melancoletta. With saddest music all day long she soothed her secret sorrow. At night she sighed, I fear 'twas wrong such cheerful words to borrow. Dearest, a sweeter, sadder song I'll sing to thee tomorrow. I thanked her, but I could not say that I was glad to hear it. I left the house at break of day and did not venture near it, till time I hoped had worn away her grief, for naught could cheer it. My dismal sister, couldst thou know the wretched home thou keepest, thy brother drowned in daily woe is thankful when thou sleepest. For if I laugh, however low, when thou art awake thou weepest. I took my sister the other day, excuse the slang expression, to Sadler's Wells to see the play, in hopes the new impression might in her thoughts from grave to gay effect some slight digression. I asked 3 gay young dogs from town to join us in our folly, whose mirth I thought might serve to drown my sister's melancholy. The lively Jones, the sportive Brown, and Robinson the jolly. The maid announced the meal in tones that I myself had taught her, meant to allay my sister's moans, like oil on troubled water. I rushed to Jones, the lively Jones, and begged him to escort her. Vainly he strove with ready wit to joke about the weather, to ventilate the last on dit, to quote the price of leather. She groaned, Here I and sorrow sit. Let us lament together. I urged, You're wasting time, you know. Delay will spoil the venison. My heart is wasted with woe. There is no rest. In Venice on the Bridge of Sighs, she quoted low from Byron and from Tennyson. I need not tell of soup and fish and solemn silence swallowed, the sobs that ushered in each dish and its departure followed, nor yet my suicidal wish to be the cheese I hollowed. Some separate attempts were made to start a conversation. Madam, the sportive Brown essayed, which kind of recreation, hunting or fishing, have you made your special occupation? Her lips curved downwards instantly, as if of India rubber. Hounds in full cry I like, said she. Oh, how I long to snub her. Of fish, a whale's the one for me. It is so full of blubber. The night's performance was King John. It's dull, she wept, and so. A while I let her tears flow on. She said they soothed her woe so. At length the curtain rose upon Bombastus Furioso. In vain we roared, in vain we tried to rouse her into laughter. Her pensive glances wandered wide from orchestra to rafter. Tear upon tear, she said, and sighed, and silence followed after.
The three voices. The first voice. He trilled a carol fresh and free. He laughed aloud for very glee. There came a breeze from off the sea. It passed athwart the glooming flat. It fanned his forehead as he sat. It lightly bore away his hat, all to the feet of one who stood like maid enchanted in a wood, frowning as darkly as she could. With huge umbrella, lank and brown, unerringly she pinned it down, right through the centre of the crown. Then, with an aspect cold and grim, regardless of its battered rim, she took it up and gave it him. A while like one in dreams he stood, then faltered forth his gratitude in words just short of being rude, for it had lost its shape and shine. He moaned, he knew not what to say. The thought that I could get away strove with the thought, but I must stay. Baffled, she gave him a wolfish bark. He, aiming blindly in the dark, with random shaft had pierced the mark. She felt that her defeat was plain, yet madly strove with might and main to get the upper hand again. Fixing her eyes upon the beach, as though unconscious of his speech, she said, "Each gives to more than each." He could not answer yea or nay. He faltered, "Gifts may pass away," yet knew not what he meant to say. He felt it was his turn to speak, and with a shamed and crimson cheek, moaned, "This is harder than bezique." But when she asked him, "Wherefore so?" he felt his very whiskers glow, and frankly owned, "I do not know." Roused into sudden passion, she, in tone of cold malignity, "To others, yea, but not to thee." But when she saw him quail and quake, and when he urged, "For pity's sake," once more in gentle tones she spake, "Thought in the mind doth still abide, that is by intellect supplied, and within that idea doth hide. And he that yearns the truth to know, still further inwardly may go, and find idea from notion flow." Yet gradually one might trace a shadow growing on his face. The second voice. They walked beside the wave-worn beach. Her tongue was very apt to teach, and now and then he did beseech she would abate her dulcet tone, because the talk was all her own, and he was dull as any drone. She urged, "No cheese is made of chalk," and ceaseless flowed her dreary talk, tuned to the footfall of a walk. When with quick breath and cheeks all flushed, at length his speech was somewhat hushed. She looked at him, and he was crushed. It needed not her calm reply. She fixed him with a stony eye, and he could neither fight nor fly. When she dissected word by word his speech, half guessed at and half heard, as might a cat a little bird. Then, having wholly overthrown his views, and stripped them to the bone, proceeded to unfold her own. Shall man be man? She reached a full stop, and was still. Dead calm succeeded to the fuss, as when the loaded omnibus has reached the railway terminus, when for the tumult of the street is heard the engine's stifled beat, the velvet tread of porters' feet. With glance that ever sought the ground, she moved her lips without a sound, and every now and then she frowned. He gazed upon the sleeping sea, and joyed in its tranquillity. Still an attentive ear he lent, but could not fathom what she meant. She was not deep nor eloquent. He marked the ripple on the sand. The even swaying of her hand was all that he could understand. He saw once more that woman dread. He heard once more the words she said. He left her, and he turned aside. He sat and watched the coming tide across the shores so newly dried. He wondered at the waters clear, why he had so long preferred to hang upon her every word. In truth, he said, it was absurd. The third voice. Not long this transport held its place. Within a little moment's space, quick tears were raining down his face. His heart stood still, aghast with fear. Tears kindle not the doubtful spark. If so, why not? Of this remark the bearings are profoundly dark. Her speech, he said, hath caused this pain. But there was something in her tone that chilled me to the very bone. Her style was anything but clear, and most unpleasantly severe, and sickened with excess of dread. Prone to the dust, he bent his head, and lay like 1/3 dead. "Tell me my fault," was all he said. "Alack," he sighed. "Ah, what have I done?" A game of fives. 5 little girls of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, rolling on the hearth-rug, full of tricks and fun. 5 rosy girls in years from 10 to 6, sitting down to lessons, no more time for tricks. 5 growing girls from 15 to 11, music, drawing, languages, and food enough for 7. 5 winsome girls from 20 to 16, Each young man that calls, I say, now tell me which you mean. 5 dashing girls, the youngest 21. But if nobody proposes, what is there to be done? 5 showy girls, but 30 is an age when girls may be engaging, but they somehow don't engage. 5 dressy girls, of 31 or more, so gracious to the shy young men they snubbed so much before. 5 passé girls, their age? Well, never mind. We jog along together like the rest of humankind. But the quondam careless bachelor begins to think he knows the answer to that ancient problem, how the money goes. Poeta fit, non nascitur. How shall I be a poet? How shall I write in rhyme? You told me once the very wish partook of the sublime. Then tell me how. Don't put me off with your another time. The old man smiled to see him, to hear his sudden sally. He liked the lad to speak his mind enthusiastically, and thought, there's no humdrum in him, nor any shilly-shally. And would you be a poet before you've been to school? Ah, well, I hardly thought you so absolute a fool. First learn to be spasmodic, a very simple rule. For first you write a sentence, and then you chop it small. Then mix the bits and sort them out, just as they chance to fall. The order of the phrases makes no difference at all. Then if you'd be impressive, remember what I say, that abstract qualities begin with capitals alway. The true, the good, the beautiful, those are the things that pay. Next, when you are describing a shape or sound or tint, don't state the matter plainly, but put it in a hint, and learn to look at all things with a sort of mental squint. For instance, if I wished, sir, of mutton pies to tell, should I say dreams of fleecy flocks pent in a wheaten cell? Why, yes, the old man said, that phrase would answer very well. Then fourthly, there are epithets that suit with any word, as well as Harvey's reading sauce, with fish or flesh or bird. Of these wild, lonely, weary, strange, are much to be preferred. And will it do? Oh, will it do, to take them in a lump, as the wild man went his weary way to a strange and lonely pump? Nay, nay, you must not hastily to such conclusions jump. Such epithets like pepper give zest to what you write, and if you strew them sparely, then whet the appetite. But if you lay them on too thick, you spoil the matter quite. Last, as to the arrangement, your reader, you should show him, must take what information he can get, and look for no immature disclosure of the drift and purpose of your poem. Therefore, to test his patience, how much he can endure, mention no places, names, or dates, and evermore be sure throughout the poem to be found consistently obscure. First fix upon the limit to which it shall extend, then fill it up with padding. Beg some of any friend. Your great sensation stanza you place towards the end. And what is a sensation, grandfather, tell me, pray? I think I never heard the word so used before today. Be kind enough to mention one exempli gratia. And the old man, looking sadly across the garden lawn, where here and there a dewdrop yet glittered in the dawn, said, Go to the Adelphi and see the Colleen Bawn. The word is due to Buchicald. The theory is his, where life becomes a spasm and history a whiz. If that is not sensation, I don't know what it is. Now try your hand ere fancy have lost its present glow. And then, his grandson added, we'll publish it, you know, green cloth, gold-lettered at the back, in 12mo. Then proudly smiled that old man to see the eager lad rush madly for his pen and ink and for his blotting pad. But when he thought of publishing, his face grew stern and sad. Sighs and tears. When on the sandy shore I sit beside the salt sea wave and fall into a weeping fit because I dare not shave, a little whisper at my ear inquires the reason of my fear. I answer, if that ruffian Jones should recognize me here, he'd bellow out my name in tones offensive to the ear. He chaffs me so on being stout, a thing that always puts me out. Ah me, I see him on the cliff. Farewell, farewell to hope. If he should look this way, and if he's got his telescope, to whatsoever place I flee, my odious rival follows me. For every night and everywhere I meet him out at dinner, and when I've found some charming fair, and vowed to die or win her, the wretch, he's thin and I am stout, is sure to come and cut me out. The girls, just like them, all agree to praise J. Jones, Esquire. I ask them what on earth they see about him to admire. They cry, he is so sleek and slim, it's quite a treat to look at him. They vanish in tobacco smoke. those visionary maids. I feel a sharp and sudden poke between the shoulder blades. Why, Brown, my boy, you're growing stout. I told you he would find me out. My growth is not your business, sir. No more it is, my boy, but if it's yours, as I infer, why, Brown, I give you joy. A man whose business prospers so is just the sort of man to know. It's hardly safe, though, talking here. I'd best get out of reach, for such a weight as yours, I fear, must shortly sink the beach. Insult me thus because I'm stout, I vow I'll go and call him out. Atalanta in Camden Town. 'Twas here on this spot, in that summer of yore, Atalanta did not vote my presence a bore, nor reply to my tenderest talk. She had heard all that nonsense before. She'd the brooch I had bought, and the necklace and sash on, and her heart, as I thought, was alive to my passion, and she'd done up her hair in a style that the Empress had brought into fashion. I'd been to the play with my pearl of a peery, but for all I could say, she declared she was weary, that the place was so crowded and hot, and she couldn't abide that dun dreary. Then I thought, lucky boy, 'tis for you that she whimpers, and I noted with joy those sensational simpers, and I said, this is scrumptious, a phrase I had learned from the Devonshire shrimpers. And I vowed, 'twill be said I'm a fortunate fellow, when the breakfast is spread, when the topers are mellow, when the foam of the bride cake is white, and the fierce orange blossoms are yellow. Oh, that languishing yawn! Oh, those eloquent eyes! I was drunk with the dawn of a splendid surmise. I was stung by a look. I was slain by a tear, by a temper of sighs. Then I whispered, I see the sweet secret thou keepest, and the yearning for me that thou wistfully weepest. And the question is, license or bans? Though undoubtedly bans are the cheapest. Be my hero, said I, and let me be Leander. But I lost her reply, something ending with gander, for the omnibus rattled so loud that no mortal could quite understand her. The Lang Courtin. The lady she stood at her lattice high, why her doggy at her feet, thorough the lattice she can spy the passers in the street. There's one that standeth at the door, and tireth at the pin. Now speak and say, my Ponginjay, if I sall let him in. Then up and spake the popinjay that flew upon her head. Guy, let him in, tells the pin, he cometh thee to wed. Oh, when he cam the parlour in, a woeful man was he. And dinna ye ken your lover again? Say well that loveth thee. And how would I ken ye loved me, sir, that have been saying lang away? Then how would I ken ye loved me, sir? Ye never tell me, say. Said Lady Adair, and the salt tear come rinning down his cheek. I have sent the tokens of me love, this many and many a week. Oh, didn't ye get the rings, lady? The rings of the gowd say fine. I wot that I have sent to thee fourscore in 9. They came to me, said that fair lady. Wow, they were flimsy things. Said, that chain o' gowd my doggy to howd. It is made of the self-same rings. And didn't ye get the locks, o' my iron black hair? Wilk I sent by post, wilk I sent by box, wilk I sent by the carrier. They came to me, said that fair lady, and I prithee send nae mair. Said that cushion say red from my doggy's head is stuffed with they locks o' hair. And didn't ye get the letter, lady, tied with a silken string? Wilk I sent thee frae the far country a message of love to bring. It came to me frae the far country with its silken string, and but it wasna prepaid, said that high-born maid. Say I guard them taken away. Oh, ever alack that ye sent it back. It was written sae clerkly and well. Now the message it brought and the boon that it sought. Oh, I must even say it myself. Then up and spake the popinjay. Say wisely counselled he. Now say it in a proper way. Gie down upon thy knee. The lover he turned baith red and pale, went doon upon his knee. Oh lady, hear the waesome tale that must be told to thee. For 5 lang years and 5 lang years I courted thee by looks, by nods and winks, by smiles and tears as I had read in books. For 10 lang years, oh weary hours, I courted thee by signs, by sending game, by sending flowers, by sending valentines. For 5 lang years and 5 lang years I have dwelt in the far country, till that thy mind should be inclined mair tenderly to me. Now 30 years are gane and past, I am come frae a foreign land. I am come to tell thee my love at last. Oh lady, give me thy hand. The lady she turned not pale nor red, but she smiled a pitiful smile. Sic a courtin as yours, my man, she said, takes a long and weary while. And out and laughed the popinjay, a laugh of bitter scorn. A courtin done in sic a way it ought not to be borne. With that the doggy barked aloud, and up and down he ran, and tugged and strained his chain o' gowd, all for to bite the man. Oh hush thee, gentle popinjay, oh hush thee, doggy dear. There is a word I fain would say, it needeth he should hear. Aye louder screamed that lady fair to drown her doggy's bark. Ever the lover shouted mair to make that lady hark. Shrill and more shrill the popinjay upraised his angry squall. I trow the doggy's voice that day was louder than them all. The serving men and serving maids sat by the kitchen fire. They heard sicked in the parlour within, as made them much admire. Out spake the boy in buttons, I ween he was a thin. Now we'll tae the parlour gay and stay this deadline din. And they have ta'en a kerchief, casted their kevils in. For what will tae the parlour gay and stay that deadly din? When on that boy the kevil fell to stay the fearsome noise, "Gay in," they cried, "whate'er betide, thou prince o' button boys." Syne he has ta'en a supple cane to swinge that dog sae fat. The doggy yowled, the doggy howled, the louder I for that. Syne he has ta'en a mutton bane, the doggy ceased his noise, and followed doon the kitchen stair that prince o' button boys. Then sadly spake that lady fair with a frown upon her brow, "Oh dear to me is my doggy than a dozen sick o' thou. Nae use for sighs and tears, nae use it all to fret. Sin ye bided sae well for 30 years, ye may bide a wee longer yet." Sadly, sadly he crossed the floor and tirled at the pin. Sadly went he through the door, which sadly he came in. Oh gin I had a popinjay to fly abune my head, to tell me what I ought to say, I had by this been wed. Oh gin I find another lady, he said with sighs and tears, I wot my courtin' shall not be another 30 years. For gin I find a lady gay, exactly to my taste, I'll pop the question aye or nay, in 20 years at maist. Fame's penny trumpet. Blow, blow your trumpets till they crack, ye little men of little souls, and bid them huddle at your back, gold-sucking leeches, shoals on shoals. Fill all the air with hungry wails, reward us ere we think or write. Without your gold mere knowledge fails to sate the swinish appetite. And where great Plato paced serene, or Newton paused with wistful eye, rushed to the chase with hoofs unclean, and babble clamour of the sty. Be yours the pay, be theirs the praise. We will not rob them of their due, nor vex the ghosts of other days by naming them along with you. They sought and found undying fame. They toiled not for reward nor thanks. Their cheeks are hot with honest shame. For you the modern mountebanks, who preach of justice, plead with tears that love and mercy should abound, while marking with complacent ears the moaning of some tortured hound. Who prate of wisdom, nay, forbear, lest wisdom turn on you in wrath, trampling with heel that will not spare the vermin that beset her path. Go throng each other's drawing rooms, ye idols of a petty clique. Strut your brief hour in borrowed plumes, and make your penny trumpets squeak. Deck your dull talk with pilfered shreds of learning from a nobler time, and oil each other's little heads with mutual flattery's golden slime. And when the topmost height ye gain, and stand in glory's ether clear, and grasp the prize of all your pain, so many £100 a year, then let flame's banner be unfurled. Sing paeans for a victory won, ye tapers that would light the world, and cast a shadow on the sun, who still shall pour his rays sublime, one crystal flood from east to west, when ye have burned your little time and feebly flickered into rest.